When it comes to the Straw Hats, you know that every one of them has a particular role in the crew, Zoro being the combatant and Nami being the navigator, for example. Now when it comes to Usopp and Sanji, their crew roles are designated as the sniper and the cook. But what these two have in common is that they go far beyond what is expected of them within the confines of their role on the ship. They also are two of the most scrutinized crew members on the crew. For Sanji, it's mostly just banter between the Sanji fans and Zoro fans, but I still want to highlight him because of all that Sanji does, and for Usopp, he for some reason is almost universally hated, even though he's one of the most useful and integral members of the crew. Both of these characters tend to make contributions that are important but aren't necessarily big flashy moments. For example, you remember all of Zoro's moments because all of his moments involve fights, so of course you'll remember them. But if I tell you that the crew dies a horrible death before Alabasta if you remove Sanji or Usopp, you'll probably start questioning what I'm talking about. As an example of what I'm talking about, when the Straw Hats enter the Grand Line after coming down from Reverse Mountain, Luffy attacks Laboon by literally ripping the mast of the Mary off and using it to stab Laboon, and Usopp is the one who has to fix the ship while everybody else just does other stuff. Now Nami and Sanju were prepping for the journey ahead, so I understand why they didn't help, but Zoro literally watches Usopp work, and his excuse for not helping is that he isn't a ship carpenter, as if Usopp is. They are lucky that Usopp is an extremely gifted engineer and handyman, because if he wasn't, I wonder how the crew planned to make it past this point. Now of course you may be wondering why this video is about the two of them, and that's because they both honestly are an extremely underrated duo, and if you go through the series, they both are surprisingly in sync when it comes to their performances arc by arc. People always try to compare Zoro and Sanji's performances, but once you watch this video, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at just how much of a dynamic duo Usopp and Sanji are, both directly and indirectly. But real quick before we get into the video, if you enjoy anime analysis content, be sure to leave a like and a sub, it really helps the channel. But without further ado, let's get into it. So following Reverse Mountain, we enter the Alabasta saga, which encompasses the Whiskey Peak, Little Garden, Drum Island, and Alabasta arcs. And the Alabasta saga is honestly the perfect saga to highlight how Usopp and Sanji are essentially the backbone of the crew and are critical components in the crew's success. Now for Whiskey Peak, they are both asleep for most of the arc, but they more than make up for this with their performances on Little Garden, where these two are without a doubt the MVPs of the arc. Starting with Usopp, I'm not gonna hold you, without Usopp, Luffy, Zoro, Nami, and Vivi all just die, there's no way to argue otherwise. Usopp shows up and saves Luffy from the color trap, which not only frees Luffy from the enemy's clutches, but also frees him up as a piece on the board Usopp can use to save everyone else. Usopp then on the fly uses everything he has available, including Luffy, to free the three frozen Straw Hats and Broggy. He starts by deciphering the weakness of the wax, then he tells Karoo to get a rope around the big candle thing, while he covers the rope in flammable oil, and while Usopp is doing all this, Mr. Four and Miss Valentine are both attacking him, by the way. Usopp literally takes explosions to the face and tanks half a ton of weight on him while executing his plan, and then he gets Luffy to ignite the rope using Mr. Three's head, and by doing so, Usopp saves everyone. This is honestly one of Usopp's greatest clutch moments in the series, and it is honestly not talked about enough. Moving on to Sanji. Sanji's moments on Little Garden are spoken about more, but I don't think people truly understand the gravity of what he did. So as most people know, Sanji on Little Garden accomplished three things. Firstly, he got rid of the Unluckies, and Sanji taking out Mr. Ashwood and Miss Mandibuzz, or whatever their names were, is actually a lot more important than you may think, since these two were tasked with reporting directly to Crocodile. With them gone, Crocodile is unable to verify reports from agents and the status of certain targets. This leads directly into the second thing Sanji accomplished, which is convincing Crocodile that the Straw Hats are dead, and getting rid of the Unluckies ensured Crocodile had no way to make sure of that, and simply had to go off the false information that Sanji fed him. This helped out the Straw Hats tremendously, as this left them undisturbed until they got to Alabasta. The third and final thing Sanji accomplished was of course acquiring the Eternal Pose to Alabasta. Getting the Eternal Pose is of course important, since it allows the crew to get to Alabasta in the first place, but this also indirectly saved Nami, the crew navigator's life. The reason I say indirectly is because the crew only set sail without delay after Sanji showed them the Eternal Pose. Before that, they were all just sitting around brainstorming ideas, and if they waited too long, Nami could have very well died because of the illness she picked up. This is why I say Sanji indirectly saved her life, since it's only because Sanji found the Eternal Pose they set out and managed to save her on time, even though the methods needed to save her obviously had nothing to do with Sanji. Now on Drum Island, Usopp and Sanji do mostly take a backseat. Sanji does make one sacrifice play during the avalanche and almost dies for it, but honestly I don't know how much good he did here. Sure, he protected Nami and Luffy, but he also delayed their trek up the mountain because Luffy stopped to go get him. Now I know this is in character for Sanji, he is hopelessly self-sacrificing for his friends, but this is a video about usefulness and being underrated, so although this moment is noteworthy, I think this is more of a character moment for Sanji rather than anything else. Now on to Alabasta, where Sanji and Usopp are once again in MVP conversations. Now something funny that happens near the start of Alabasta is the Baroque Works meeting, because once Mr. 3 enters the meeting, it's actually comical how the entire composure of the meeting gets derailed completely, and it's specifically due to what Sanji and Usopp did on Little Garden. Like thinking about what Sanji did literally makes Crocodile sweat and then light a cigar to calm himself down. Then after this, he starts glaring at Mr. 3 after finding out that none of the Straw Hats died, and Mr. 3's excuse is that Usopp was there. And the entire meeting is just tense from this point on until it's adjourned. So already off the jump, these two have made an impact. But for Usopp, he then goes on to make two other major contributions to the arc. The first is obvious, and that is his contribution to the battle against Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. Fool. Now his other underrated contribution is the creation of the Climate Act. This weapon is the sole reason Nami survived against Miss Doublefinger, and without it she dies. And if Nami dies, yeah, GG's to the crew. Cause they have no navigator if she's gone. Things might even spiral even more out of control because if Miss Doublefinger beats Nami, Doublefinger might join Mr. One and jump Zoro, and if that happens, Zoro might die too, and at that point the crew is entirely cooked. Now, of course, Usopp making the climb attack is kind of mega important for the rest of the series as well, since it's Nami's primary weapon. She does not survive without it, and I feel like people just don't seem to grasp that. Now for Sanji, he actually had two, arguably three, major contributions to the arc that helped the Straw Hats. Now the first was obviously Mr. Prince. So obviously this is one of Sanji's coldest moments. He rage baits Crocodile and then pretends to get captured in order to lure Crocodile out. Also, side note, notice how Usopp stops Luffy from revealing Sanji's identity in case that's relevant to the plan. Crazy foresight from Usopp. But hey, every Black Ops team needs a sniper, and that's probably why these two work so well together. But anyway, following luring Crocodile out, we find out Sanji had Chopper beat up all the billions outside the casino while announcing his identity, so by the time Crocodile arrives to figure out what happened, it sends Crocodile even further away from the casino, chasing Chopper who can change forms. Then as phase 3 of the plan, Sanji literally collapses the bridge into the casino so nobody can get in or out, ensuring he's capable of saving the crew since he's been in the casino all along. This is truly a tactical masterclass by Mr. Prince. Now actually in the middle of rescuing everyone, we have another Usopp moment as the only reason everyone gets freed is because Usopp comes up with the idea to use Mr. 3's wax powers to create a duplicate key instead of wasting time looking for the real one. Then after this they have to swim out and Sanji is the one who saves Luffy, which is obviously important. After this Sanji of course beats Mr. 2, which is his obvious second contribution. Now the third debatable one is that you could credit Bon Clay protecting the ship to Sanji as well. To explain what I'm referring to, at the end of Alabasta, Bon Clay protects the Mary from the Marines and keeps it safe for the Straw Hats. The reason this could be attributed to Sanji is because Sanji spared Bon Clay's life after their fight. Now this may seem irrelevant, but Sanji was going for the kill during the fight as he was shocked that Bon Clay was still breathing after the attack. But after seeing that he did survive, Sanji offers him mercy, and this warms Bon Clay's heart, and this led to the narrator saying that the spoils of victory from this battle was a dubious friendship. If we're taking this at face value, it means that Sanji's victory is what won the friendship that kept the Mary safe, but if you don't want to credit this to Sanji, I think that's also fine. Now on to Water 7 and Enies lobby. Obviously, this is where the infamous crew drama happens and Usopp leaves the crew temporarily and Robin also goes missing. Now I think we all know what happens here.
Bingo.
So obviously, Usopp doesn't do much for the rest of the arc, but after finding out Robin is in trouble, he employs his friend Sogeking to help the Straw Hats in the raid on Enies lobby, and oh boy, Sogeking and Mr. Prince go crazy from this point onward. Starting on the sea train itself, these two and Frankie, mostly Sanji though, took out entire train cars of Cypherpole agents. This raid on the sea train is a lot more impactful than you may think since it cut down the Marines' elite fighting force. There was already a concern that the random fodder on Enies lobby would pose a problem for the Straw Hats because of stamina reasons, and Sanji on the sea train led a three-man cell that took out hordes of Cypherpole agents methodically and precisely, with the least amount of effort required. There's also the fact that if Robin didn't resist being saved, Sanji's team would have straight up saved her during the raid. Sogeking successfully got into her train and had equipment ready to extract her. If she wanted to, they could have been home free thanks to Sanji's tactical mind and Sogeking's gadgets. Obviously this isn't what happened, but these two don't stop performing once they reach Enies lobby. Now kicking it off, obviously Usopp prior to leaving upgraded the climb attack which was integral to success on the island. It kept Nami alive and also got rid of the horde that was there when they all arrived on the island, which allowed them to keep moving forward. After this, Sanji takes the reins of Sodom or Gomorrah, one of the two giant seahorse things, and uses them to bulldoze all the way through to the main building of Enies' lobby with the Straw Hats. Later, as they near the courthouse, Zoro and Sanji blast through the wall, and after landing they discover there's a special force there. After realizing this, Zoro says they just gotta ignore them and move on, but as he finishes the sentence, Sanji already hunted one down and beat him as a means to show the forces the Straw Hats are leaving behind what they are up against. This may seem insignificant, but they are launching a small-scale war, and in war, information is everything, and Sanji is providing that for the forces he knows he could very well be leaving behind to die. Something important Usopp does is he convinces Oimo and Kashi to switch sides. These are two literal giants that Usopp gets to fight against the forces of Enies' lobby, so this is an instrumental contribution to the raid. Going forward, they both have a kind of terrible start to the encounters during the Enies' lobby raid. Sanji gets snowdiffed by Khalifa, because of course he would, and Usopp is genuinely dead weight against Jabra and Kaku, but they both do end up redeeming themselves. For Sanji, he ends up completely embarrassing Jabra during their fight, and then Sanji goes on to sabotage the Gates of Justice, which was instrumental to the Straw Hats' escape at the end of the arc. Now what Sanji did with the Gates of Justice is probably more impressive than you remember, because not only did it allow for everyone to escape, but it also directly saved their lives. Sanji closing the gates caused a whirlpool that made it so that the Marines' targeting systems couldn't lock onto the Straw Hats, and the Marines instead started firing on each other by mistake. This was instrumental since Usopp says outright that in the situation they were in, the Marines had zero way to miss, yet Sanji made it happen. This is one of the most clutch moments in the series. Usopp even contributes to the escape after this too, since he puts up a smokescreen that makes it so that the Marines can't keep an eye on them as they escape. Speaking of Usopp and his friend Sogeking, Sogeking protected Robin by sniping Spandam and all the surrounding Marines from an insane distance away with pinpoint accuracy, and then he also gets all the keys to her and Frankie so she can be freed. This moment is also one of the times where Oda highlights Sanji and Usopp's relationship, as when Usopp pulls off this absolutely insane feat, Sanji praises him and rightfully so. Moving on to Thriller Bark, Sanji doesn't do anything super outstanding here. He contributes as much as everyone else does, especially in the crew battle against Oars. Usopp on the other hand does his fair share against Oars, and on top of that eliminated the greatest threat on the island, Perona. Like it or not, without Usopp the Straw Hats are cooked against Perona, but I think this is pretty well known so I won't spend a lot of time on it. Now Sabaody causes all the Straw Hats aside from Luffy to go on hiatus for the next few major arcs, and next time Usopp and Sanji return is Fishman Island. Now honestly Fishman Island was just all the Straw Hats equally doing their own separate jobs. Sanji and Usopp really don't do anything super noteworthy here. Punk Hazard is a pretty similar situation. Sanji really only saves Tashigi and her men, which I guess is important. Usopp on the other hand is actually the one who captures Caesar at the end of the arc, so hey, that's pretty important and I don't think many people remember that. Obviously, capturing Caesar was a big part of the Emperor slaying plan, so this is a great contribution from Usopp, but honestly, pretty much anyone else could have done this, so it is noteworthy, but it's not super crazy. Now on Dressrosa, of course Usopp has his big moment. Now obviously everyone knows about the God Usopp moment and him sniping Sugar, but I don't think everyone understands how impactful these moments are, as their impact doesn't end when the moments end. Usopp saved the Grand Fleet members. Without him, there is no Grand Fleet, and considering these people are supposed to be involved in an incident that's going to have great historical significance, I'd say Usopp's role in it has to be acknowledged. Usopp also obviously saves Luffy and Law from Sugar. This is pretty cut and dry. Without Usopp, the Straw Hats lose here. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. As for Sanji, Sanji does also play a big part in Dressrosa despite not being there for most of the arc, since Sanji is the reason Viola switches sides. This was instrumental, since this gave the Straw Hats a heads up on Dofi's trap so Laws repaired when Fujitora and Dofi showed up. It also allowed Sanji to get a map to the factory, which is one of the main reasons they're on the island in the first place, so Sanji really clutched up here. Viola also helps Usopp set up his shot on Sugar later, so you really cannot understate Sanji getting her to switch sides. Viola honestly was mad clutch this arc, because she was constantly helping by giving out information, be that inside information on the Dofi family or information she gathered using her clairvoyance. Sanji also obviously saved the crew from Dofi. Yes, he did lose this encounter, but Law wasn't going to make it in time, so Sanji slowing Dofi down did save the crew. A real big moment for Sanji is what happens after this though. Sanji leads the crew to Zou. On Zou, Sanji takes complete charge to the point he constantly darts around the island making sure everyone is safe and giving them orders accordingly. When Zunisha spouts water and it takes out Chopper and separates Nami and Brook from the main group, Sanji immediately secures Chopper and then moves on to make sure Nami and Brook are okay, but only after making sure to keep Caesar in check by showing Caesar Sanji still has his heart. Then Sanji checks in and sees Nami and Brook are together, and he tells Brook to guard her while he deals with the other beast pirates he sees. After this, they all help the Minks, and then later on Beje and Peckham show up. At this point, Sanji had everything under control. He purposefully drew the two Big Mom pirates away from the civilian Minks due to the ordeal they had just gone through, and only brought Brook with him because Sanji needed to make sure if things went south, he didn't have any liabilities with him. Despite his planning, Nami and Chopper follow him and get captured as hostages, which completely puts Sanji on the back foot. Even in the scenario though, and faced with the fact that Zeph is in danger, Sanji makes sure to save the crew and ensure they aren't pursued. These Zou moments truly show how much of a leader Sanji is when Luffy is in prison, and they should be spoken of more often. Now on Zou, Usopp with the help of Frankie does upgrade the climb attack. This becomes instrumental on both Whole Cake Island and Wano, as the upgraded climb attack is what allowed Nami to steal Zeus from Big Mom. Now the entirety of Whole Cake Island is just a Sanji and Luffy show for the most part, so I don't think I have to go over that. Wano on the other hand does require further examination, especially during the raid. From even before the beginning of the raid, Usopp was putting in work. Usopp took out some of the guards who were watching at the gates, and this meant that they couldn't alert the beast pirates on the island. Keeping the element of surprise active for the Alliance may seem like nothing, but if they didn't have that brief moment where they all could get into position, they would have been attacked at the entrance to Onigashima, and a battle at the coast wouldn't be ideal for the Alliance, especially since they'd be at sea trying to get onto land, facing hordes of enemies pushing them back. The sheer number of the beast pirates was a main plot point during the raid, so there's a good chance that the Alliance would have gotten overwhelmed had Usopp not done this. Speaking of the plot point with the number of beast pirates versus the number of Alliance members, Usopp played an integral role here too. After Tama shows up and reveals she can control the smile users if she gets a Kibidango in their mouths, Usopp is the one who fires it into their mouths. If he doesn't get all the smile users to flip, then even if all the main players win their fights, the raid still fails, because the overwhelming number of fodder would kill the remaining fighters, because all the fighters were completely exhausted by the end of the raid. Usopp was integral to the success of the raid, and anyone who says he was useless on Wano needs to reread the manga. As for Sanji, Sanji played the ultimate support in the background. He gave Zoro first aid off of the rooftop, and then protects Zoro from fodder while getting him to a doctor, and once Sanji reaches the performance floor, he saves Chopper from Queen while holding Zoro. Sanji for this entire portion of his fight is fighting while protecting others. I just mentioned how he protected Zoro and Chopper. Then after this, he saves Usopp, Nami, and Chopper from Queen too, and considering how important they are, this is an important play. Sanji also protects the entire performance floor from Perospero's arrows mid-fight with Queen by kicking Queen so hard his neck spins fast enough to knock away all the arrows. After this we cut away, and when we cut back we find out Sanji wasn't only fighting Queen while protecting all these people, he was fighting King and Queen. Sanji genuinely put in a crazy shift on Onigashima before he eventually beat Queen, because without him the casualties in this raid would skyrocket, and may very well have included the entire weak trio. On Egghead, I don't think there's anything super noteworthy here. It's pretty well documented and understood what both of them contributed on the island. I think maybe people forget that Usopp saved the ship, and considering that's the ship, it's kind of important. But other than that, I don't think there's really anything that needs extensive coverage on Egghead. As of making this video, the Elbaf arc is still ongoing, so I won't be speaking on anything in that arc, which means that this is the end of the video. If you made it this far, I want to thank you so very much for watching. Usopp and Sanji are two characters that I feel get underappreciated sometimes, and like I said at the start of the video, they have this weird synchronicity between them for most of the series, which is why I made this video on both of them. But with that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day or night whenever you're watching this, and I hope to see you all next time.